Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager. I'm joined today by special new guest host, Shannon Snow. Welcome to the show, Shannon.
Hi, Angela. How are you?
Good to see you. You look great. Um,
Likewise.
yeah, and Shannon has never been on the show before, so this is super exciting. Shannon is my sister-in-law, so she is my husband's sister. And let's see, we've seen a lot of movies together over the years in person, and then of course now with COVID and everything that's been going on, we've been talking about movies remotely. And so I've never got to have Shannon on the show before because she's always lived far away. But now, thanks to the magic of Zoom, we're going to be able to have you on as a guest host. So very excited to have you here today.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. I'm obviously a huge fan of the show. And being family, it's always been such a joy to watch movies over the holidays together. As I'm sure your audience knows, Angela always picks the perfect movie for our full family to watch together over the holidays, which has been
Not
such a
easy.
joy.
Not
So
easy
it's
to
not
do.
easy. There's a lot of different tastes happening in the family, but we always get the good ones. So it's going to be a pleasure to see what you think of this week's films.
Yeah, it's a pretty difficult with the Snow family finding a movie that satisfies everyone because I think you and I are probably the easiest to find movies for, and then your husband for top, and then Julian are. Whew, it's difficult. It's difficult. It's sort of like a Venn diagram that's almost unsolvable in terms of everyone's taste. So I
Yeah.
managed to find a few things over the years that everyone's been able to enjoy. I think the last holiday that we all went to see a movie was maybe the Mr. Rogers movie, but I can't remember if that was the last one. But yeah, so try to find something everyone can get something out of. But
Well, it's something we can all relate to, especially being stuck home with Netflix and the full family over the last couple of years. So you have a gift, and we're grateful for it.
yeah. So Shannon, maybe we could start off by having you tell folks about a few of your favorite movies of all time to give the audience a chance to get to know your taste.
Absolutely. Well, I will say that when I think of my favorite movies and ones where my jaw has just hit the floor, it's always been really well written whodunits. So Memento, Usual Suspects, or movies
Mm.
like Knives Out more recently come to mind as movies that really just leave me stunned coming out of the theater. But I do have a more rewatchable taste of movies. I love to rewatch movies over and over again, especially ones that are well written and have heart. So films like Good Will Hunting, Juno, all the Pixar films, Wall-E. I tend to like the movies that win Best Original Screenplay better than the movies that actually win Best Picture. So I love those well-written films.
Yeah, and when I first met you, I remember one of the first movies you mentioned that you really loved was Audrey Hepburn's Breakfast at Tiffany's. Is that still a rewatchable one for you, or not as much anymore?
Absolutely. Any movie with strong female characters, I think you do this great thing where you can analyze someone's personality based on some of their favorite films. And I think at that time, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Clueless, Mean Girls, a lot of
Oh yeah,
strong
Clueless
female
was a big one.
characters were in there. And you correctly analyze that, I like films where females are trying to find their way in the world. So still
Yeah,
very, very true for me.
yeah, I remember Clueless very well. So, and then you also now work, so you have some overlap in your work life. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. So as you know, I've long time been in tech, long time at Google, and now I work at Facebook. And over the last couple of years, I've been leading our media and entertainment vertical. So as part of that job, I get to lead a team that actually consults with media companies and film studios on how to market their movies on Instagram and Facebook. So it's been a fun meeting of personal and professional.
So I'm curious, any of the ones we're reviewing today, the newer ones, did you have any connection with those in terms of helping to market them?
Not these ones in particular, but we have been working quite a bit with streaming services, especially as we try to get everyone access to these films.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. Well, we
Definitely.
purposefully today picked a director we both really appreciate, and so we're going to be looking at two Steven Soderbergh films. So this will be really fun, and then we will be moving on to looking at kind of an action film with females because we thought that would be fun to review, and then a documentary. So we got a good mix today, and I'll kick us off with our first film, which is No Sudden Move by director Steven Soderbergh. And this is what's supposed to be a simple heist job. It turns into anything but in a complex conspiracy involving the automobile industry. This movie stars Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro in the two lead roles, and I could just watch those two actors basically read the dictionary. So I was really excited going into this one. It also has this amazing supporting cast with pretty much anyone you could think of: Ray Liotta, John Hamm, Bill Duke, the great character actor as the gangster Aldrich Watkins, and Amy Seimetz, who a lot of people may not be familiar with, but she's actually an independent filmmaker in her own right, who plays the chain-smoking housewife who has a major role in the movie. So, and then there's also a surprise cameo in the movie, which I won't spoil because they kept his name off the credits, of someone who's worked with Soderbergh quite a bit. Now, what this movie does, this is a very typical Soderbergh movie in a way, in that it seems like a simple kind of heist movie. You know, the plot itself is what we're used to in a lot of heist movies. Like, it's supposed to be a simple job. They even called it a babysitting job. They each get $5,000. These are a group of criminals that all have their reasons for doing this, hoping it to be the last job. So we've seen this before, and then everything goes wrong very quickly. But what Soderbergh does here, which I thought was so interesting, is that he weaves in all this sort of socio-political things happening at the time that is actually real. So the heist part may not be real, but this other stuff is real, involving these documents that have secrets of the automobile industry that are about to blow the whole thing open. And everybody and their brother wants their hands on on these documents. There's also kind of a background plot of redlining happening in Detroit, as there are efforts to basically raise Black neighborhoods, build freeways over them, take out the trolleys, and gentrify the city. So this is also going on in the background. And while that's not a major part of the plot, it's also underlying some of the racial dynamics that are happening in the movie. And there are some ties with the redlining to the automobile industry. So it's very complex. It reminds me in some ways of his movie Traffic, in that there's this very complex political undertones in what seems to be kind of a simple action movie. I'm really curious to hear what you thought of the movie, Shannon.
I thought this movie was phenomenal. Like you mentioned, it was a tapestry. There was, kind of the surface of really just a great heist movie, and everything we've come to love from Soderbergh in terms of how he builds those stories and keeps them moving in such a beloved way. But I thought that how he set it in Detroit and really brought in some pretty complex themes involving social dynamics, the auto industry, redlining. I thought that he wove that in so masterfully, where it really made the experience very rich. I think a lot of times watching a movie, sometimes characters will drop little things and you'll think, oh, that might come together as part of, the broader plot. But there were so many things that he scattered throughout this movie that really wove together at the end. I wish I had even done more research on Detroit and what was happening at that time before watching the movie, because there was just so much woven in. I felt like I needed to immediately rewatch it afterwards to really put it all together.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely got rewatchability factor big time. And I think he captures the feeling of Detroit in the 60s and everything that was going on at that time. The plot is super complicated, and there's a lot of names dropped at the beginning. And I thought, I don't know if I'm going to know, because there's sort of gangsters, and then there's also the automobile industry guys, and sometimes it's not clear who's doing which one is actually the gangster, if that makes sense. And then there's and they're dropping names, and so Don Cheadle's character has been working with this gangster that he's trying to get right with. Benicio del Toro's character has worked with these different people, and it's a very complicated plot with lots of machinations throughout. So it definitely has rewatchability factor. I did have to say there was one. The only thing that really bothered me in the film is that, and I'm not clear why he did this, but Soderbergh uses a fisheye lens in quite a few of the scenes to give it this kind of distorted visual look. And I found it at times to be distracting, partially because I wasn't sure why he was using it. I didn't understand what the reason for that visual take was. But everything else was really so well done and so well shot that it didn't bother me. And honestly, I feel like Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro aren't in enough movies. I mean, Don Cheadle's been in some Marvel stuff recently, but I could care less about those movies. But he's such a great actor. Don Cheadle in particular gets a lot to do in this movie. He's a great actor that works with his eyes a lot and expresses a lot through that. And even though these guys are criminals, you're actually sort of rooting for them, because the real criminals are the big guys behind the scenes that are actually manipulating anything. These guys are just small time, you know, really the ones that you just have this feeling of dread as you're watching the movie because you know that they're going to end up on the bad side of this.
Absolutely. And I think the way that he told the story at every level, having the racial dynamics between Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro's character, and that playing out into the rival gangs, you know, one coming from the white side of town, one coming from the black side of town, and then ultimately up to how the, you know, sources of power within, you know, the city in terms of the auto industry as well as the police and how they all played together. I think that he did a really good job of showcasing sort of the micro tensions between the characters, but also kind of the macro layers and doing it very, very consistently. So just so much to really ponder in this film, but amazingly done.
Yeah, and you think heist movie, when you think of Soderbergh, people tend to think of like the Ocean's 11 movies. These are not those kind of movies. This is not like a slick, stylized type of thing with guys who are winning. These are guys who are not winning, and or at least the main characters, and are really finding themselves at the bottom end of things. It's definitely much more of a masculine movie than some of Soderbergh is a director who goes back and forth between sometimes working with really strong female characters. I think about Aaron Brockovich and some, and the one we're going to be reviewing next. And then this one is much more in that kind of Ocean's 11 realm of a very masculine world. However, I would say that the women who are cast in this, particularly Amy Simons, but also Julia Fox, as Benicio del Toro's love interest, are really, you know, do a really good job and are given something to do besides just be the girlfriends, which is nice. So yeah,
Agreed.
I
I
can
think there's
recommend this
some
movie for sure. And so it is available on streaming right now. So for me, it's a 3.5 star movie. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. It was also a 3.5 star movie for me. I think the agency that he gives to his female characters, you know, while we'd love to have, you know, more for them to do, I think that there was really every character had a motive. And I love the fact that Detroit was such a central figure in the movie. I think it's really a character. I read that,
Itself, yeah.
you know, he fought to shoot in Detroit and didn't sub in another city like Cincinnati that is, you know, typically subbed in to make the film cheaper. He kept it in Detroit because it was so central to the story. And I think it really paid off in terms of bringing the whole picture together.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is another character in the movie for sure. Great. So we'll move on to our next one, which I think is yours to introduce.
Perfect. So when you suggested that we watch the new Steven Soderbergh, it reminded me of a conversation that I had had early in the pandemic, which was if you were stuck on a desert island with the catalog of one film director, who would it be? And in that conversation, I had actually selected Steven Soderbergh, partially because of the depth of his catalog. He has over 30 movies, you know, and many more projects if you look at his IMDb. And it's a really nice mix of art house indies, Sex, Lies, and Videotape, also, you know, helped catalyze the independent film movement in the 90s. But he also has capers like the Oceans trilogy that is really endlessly rewatchable and all-star casts, and then punctuated with Oscar winners like Traffic, and films that have won Academy Awards for Julia Roberts and Erin Brockovich. So when we were going to watch No Sudden Move by Soderbergh, I was reminded of this choice, and it was really clear to me that I haven't seen his full catalog. I'd even missed, you know, sort of big budget films like his, like Contagion, which, you know, also became a big pandemic rewatch. So I thought that this could be a unique opportunity for us to dive into a Soderbergh pick that, you know, myself and then maybe perhaps your audience might have missed. So we selected Haywire, which is a 2011 action film about Mallory Kane. She is a freelance covert operative who is hired by global entities to perform jobs that governments can't officially authorize. So after a series of missions in Barcelona and Dublin, she finds herself double-crossed, and she must use her wits and, frankly, her kick-ass fighting skills to unravel the mystery about who set her up and restore her reputation. So the movie features an all-star cast, including Ewan McGregor, Channing Tatum, Bill Paxton, Michael Fassbender, Antonio Banderas, and Michael Douglas, and stars former MMA fighter Gina Carano, who does her own stunts. So I think for those like me that are fans of Soderbergh and films like Out of Sight, I think you'll notice a lot of similar elements. There is the brooding caper music. There's a very unique use of colors to set the tone. And the plot really keeps you guessing. There's a lot of locations across Europe and the US, and I think that it maintains a really unique sense of place in each locale. So overall, I found this to be quite a fun watch, you know, not as predictable as a typical caper movie. And I enjoyed its fast-paced nature. Angela, what did you think?
Yeah, I love this movie. I actually loved it more on rewatch. I saw it years ago, and then this movie was kind of a big bomb for Soderbergh in terms of, it's obviously a high budget movie, and he took a big chance by casting someone who was not an actor, Gina Carano, as the lead, mixed martial arts fighter in real life, and so she does her own stunts, and then surrounding her with, let me just say, a bevy of gorgeous Hollywood men. I mean, Michael Fassbender, Ewan McGregor, and Channing Tatum alone. Then he throws in Antonio Banderas, as you mentioned. I mean, it's just one after another. And so there's a lot of fun with that because it's sort of the opposite of what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing like the James Bond type guy with the beautiful women surrounding him. This is a flip on that. Um, and the movie did not perform well at the box office. I feel like it was almost ahead of its time, even though it's only 2011. The kind of kick-ass female action movie has become more popular in recent years. One of the things Soderbergh does so well, and I should have watched these movies in reverse because I watched the other one we're going to be reviewing a little later first, and then watched this, and then thought, oh, this is how you stage action sequences, because you get to see he pulls the camera back and he shows you Gina Carano literally in the fight sequences and hand-to-hand combat and her doing her moves, which includes a lot of like twisting of her legs and the types of things you would see in mixed martial arts. A lot of scenes of her like wrapping her legs around the guy's necks to like get him down to the ground and fight him. And it's just really exciting to watch. It also has a very twisty little plot, which is really fun, where she's not sure who's betraying her. And so she works for Ewan McGregor's company, but there's all these kind of like similar in a way to the last one we reviewed, No Sudden Move, like twists, and you're not sure who has what motive. Different than that, in that this is really a straight ahead action movie, not really political at all. And I actually think I mean, at the time when it came out, I remember Gina Carano's acting was criticized quite a bit. People said she was wooden. I actually don't find her that way. I think she's going with kind of that straight ahead um, action star feeling, and I think it's just women are expected to emote more than she does, but it didn't bother me, and particularly on repeated viewing, I thought she actually did a really good job. It reminded me a little bit of a movie that came out a few years ago, Atomic Blonde, with Charlize Theron, where she played a very similar kind of character, kind of an action, a female assassin, who has all these different people that she ends up having to bring down, and this one was really the prototype for that type of thing. So I really enjoyed it. It actually, if you like action movies, I would say go for this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think that uh, I thought the way that she played the character very straight was very realistic in terms of someone who would choose to be, you know, a hit woman and a contract black ops person as their job. You know, I wouldn't expect them to be highly emotional or feminized
Right.
in a particular way. So I thought that that was very realistic. And while you know, this movie doesn't tackle some of the socio-political and economic themes of, you know, No Sudden Move or some of the other deeper terrain that we know Soderbergh is capable of. I do think that it was a really fun watch. I mean, the movie is 90 minutes and it packs a lot in. You know, if I'm on a
Yeah.
plane with 2 hours and I wanted to just make sure that I watched a great little movie, I think that this would be an awesome choice. And I think that, you know, it's definitely worth revisiting if those have missed it in his catalog.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing I wanted to mention about her and her physical body type, well, she's a very attractive woman, and yeah, she looks like she could physically do the things she's doing. It actually is a pet peeve of mine to see in some of these action movies, and no offense to petite women like yourself, Shannon, but sometimes these very, very tiny, skinny little women like taking on these like huge, like 300-pound guys or whatever. But she's she's an attractive woman, obviously, but she looks physically able to do, which could because she is able to do the things she's doing, and so I really appreciated that about the movie. She looks like bulked up to do the action sequences that are asked of her. So, and I like that you brought up that she is a black ops. She's a former military person, so she has that kind of like stoic thing going on. And there's nothing wrong with a little male eye candy now and then. I should have seen this was, Soderbergh setting us up for Magic Mike, right? So we've got, Channing Tatum, Ewan McGregor, Michael Fassbender. I was just like, wow, this lady's really lucky. It's too bad all these guys are trying to kill her, really, so, because they're all so hot. So anyway, so yeah, definitely a lot of fun.
Absolutely. So I gave this one 3 stars. How about you?
3.5 for me.
Excellent. And I wanted to actually get your take on the question that I posed at the beginning,
Oh,
which is
the
if,
island one.
yeah,
Yeah,
if you were
that's
stuck on
good.
a desert island with the catalog of one director, anyone you would choose?
Yeah, I think now that I thought about it when you first mentioned it, and I was thinking, dead or alive. So then I was like, oh, that's hard. So dead, I would go with Agnes Varda because she's one of my favorite filmmakers. She also, because she made movies into her 90s, has a lot of movies, even more than Soderbergh. So and a big variety as well. So there would be a lot to keep me busy. So she's the one that I first thought of. If I wanted to go with a filmmaker that's still alive, that was tricky because the ones I immediately thought of were ones who haven't made a lot of films, like Sean Baker, ones that I really love. So Soderbergh actually would be a good pick because he has a lot of variety, whereas someone like a Tarantino, is really a good filmmaker, but it's a lot of the same type of thing. Whereas if you're stuck on a desert island, with you're watching Soderbergh, you could go action, romance, like you said, indie, comedy. You'd have a little bit of everything. You could watch Magic Mike over and over. So there would be some good variety there as well. So yeah, I agree with that. So
I love it. Well, maybe we can revisit some of the films of the two directors you mentioned in a future
yeah,
future episode.
yeah, I feel like I'm stuck on a desert island anyway, so I might as well be.
Yeah, it's like it's relevant conversation to be having now as we
Yeah,
stretch into the pandemic.
right.
All right. So shall we move to Gunpowder Milkshake?
Yeah.
So this is a new release on Netflix, directed by Navot Papushado. It caught my eye with an impressive cast, including Angela Bassett, Michelle Yeoh, Carlo Gugino, and Paul Giamatti. And its striking visuals, which really just pop off the screen in comic book fashion. It stars Karen Gillan as Sam, who is a contract killer, and the daughter of a hit
Same
woman.
here.
I know both of the movies that I
I
chose
know.
started with a female contract killer in a diner, which I don't know what that says about me, but interesting pairing that I did not expect. So this contract killer follows in her mother's footsteps. Her mom is also in the business, and after she's abandoned when her mom goes on the run. So she gets into a series of jobs that go unexpectedly wrong, and she unexpectedly finds herself caring for the 8-year-old daughter of someone she was hired to kill, and ultimately reunites with her mom and her mom's friends to try to save the girl and themselves from assassins. So this movie, it's very clear that the director, Papushado, is heavily inspired by Quentin Tarantino and films like Kill Bill. The whole movie is just dripping with homages to Tarantino. And it seems like the feeling was mutual. Tarantino actually called one of the director Papushado's earlier films, Big Bad Wolves, in 2013, one of the year's best films. However, I would say that this new movie, Gunpowder Milkshake, is not going to be earning that high of praise, at least for me. I think that there were flashes of beauty here, but ultimately it didn't deliver.
I really disliked this movie, and I feel bad because I think I actually recommended that we, maybe review this one because I was excited about the cast, and I thought, especially Michelle Yeoh and Angela Bassett, I could also sort of like I said earlier with Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro, I would watch them in anything. Unfortunately, they're not given anything to do. They're side characters. Karen Gillan, who's the lead, I think she became famous maybe for Guardians of the Galaxy. She's on TV. To me, she just doesn't hold the screen. To me, this contrasted so interestingly with Haywire, where you have someone that actually knows how to shoot action movies in a way that's compelling and exciting. Here, it's just all chopped up. It's all CGI. I couldn't tell who was doing what. There's legs and arms flying. It's way over the top, which I can appreciate when it's done in a stylized way that's really fun. I think they were almost going for like a John Wick type thing here, where some of the violence is really over the top. But unlike John Wick, you can't actually see the action. So it's just watching lots of quick cutting scenes over and over to no effect. I didn't really care about the characters. The main character, I couldn't get, I didn't really feel anything for what was happening to her. So it was really hard for me to be motivated as the various assassins were coming after her. So not a recommendation for me, unfortunately. I would have loved to have seen a director who can actually direct action, take the same storyline and, make it more interesting. So.
Agreed. I will say, there are flashes of brilliance in this movie. Certainly the look, there's a fight scene at a bowling alley that looks like a Daft Punk video, and it's gorgeous, but I probably would have rather seen it as a music video than part of the movie. And
Yeah.
there are bits and pieces of feminist comedy. I think there's some scenes where, women are fighting with no arms, caring for a child, and somehow managing to, hold
Yeah.
their own, or, in a scene that I think a lot of parents will appreciate, having gone through the pandemic on Zoom, like child is like having a full meltdown right before, the parent has to go to do something really important. And I think that those were, appreciated little moments. I think what really bothered me was, as you said, the no substance, great actors giving nothing to do, and just way too gory. I had to close my eyes for large sections of the film. So much blood, so much violence, without anything that it was standing for. And, while I appreciated, the feminist message, I think that, putting a female in a male action role is, it's sad that someone would still consider that progressive. I mean, the movie that we reviewed was made 10 years ago, and Haywire. And I think that you could say that even that was too late.
Right.
And, honestly, I think in a world where, globally, 1 in 3 women are subjected to physical or sexual violence in their life, trying to deliver a feminist message in a package that glamorizes the type of violence that women are actually experiencing just really hit wrong for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in Haywire, there's a lot of violence against her, but it's the way it's portrayed and the fact that she seems so capable and her character is more fleshed out. It didn't bother me as much as it did in this one, where they're just like smashing the woman's faces into the wall or whatever, and I just it was whatever, I think if the characters had more substance, it would have felt, but instead it just was like, ooh, hot girls doing action. That's what it felt like. And it also, Michelle Yeoh is a real, I mean, she can do actual action. We've seen that in some of her martial arts films. And so, like, why not give these women something to really do in the movie that doesn't insult our intelligence? So it really kind of bothered me overall. And I do think a lot of the sequences did look like a music video, but not in a good way. I don't need my movies to look like that. So I would agree with you about the bowling scene, that it does look a little bit stylized like a music video. But yeah, overall, just not a recommendation for me. And I think because we're running out of time, I'm going to cut our last film, and then I'm going to ask you, Shannon, to come back on the show in the fall, and we'll definitely review that one because I do not want to miss getting to review. We were going to review Summer of Soul, so we're going to come back to that one because we're almost out of time, because we spent so much time on, apparently this was the episode for for action movies, and it just worked out that way. I don't think Shannon and I tend to watch a lot of action movies together, but like you said, it's so weird that 2 of the movies just happen to have these like diner sequences.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely the most action I've seen, but I'm happy that
Yeah.
we got
So
to do
next
it
time we'll do the
together.
opposite. We'll do all documentaries and like slow foreign films or something. It'll be like Polish art house films and documentaries, just to show how mixed we can do. So to wrap up, No Sudden Move, we both gave 3.5 stars. Haywire, you gave 3, I gave 3.5. And then for Gunpowder Milkshake, I'm giving it 2 stars.
I'm also giving it 2, and that might only be because the beautiful visuals.
Yeah. So thank you again to Shannon Snow for being on the show. Really appreciate it, Shannon. As always, you can find us on our website, on Twitter, and on Facebook. We're on CC Media, Scan TV in Silverton, Corvallis Access Media, KMUZ Radio, and KMWV Radio. I'd like to thank our fantastic crew in absentia, Brad Wortman, for taping us here on Zoom, our wonderful sponsors. Thank you very much. Have a great day and great movies.